As we begin a new season, and as we grow and mature as an organization, I wanted to take some time to share the intellectual underpinnings behind how we design our seasons. Please keep in mind that this is just a small portion of our overall program design. Our bigger picture involves the holistic development of all areas of the athlete, physiological, psychological, tactical, and technical aspects, which are all addressed in the level system. For more information about the level system, check out the link on our website. Before we begin, some of these videos will feature an AI-generated or cloned voice of myself. I thought that some people would rather listen and watch than read my posts, especially when they are long and more involved like this one. If I sound robotic on these videos, it is because I am. With all of this as a backdrop, let's begin. Designing competitive seasons vary greatly throughout the developmental process. A new 6-year-old has a much different developmental need than that of an aspiring national team member. In the early stages, the focus is on technique, interpersonal skills, and learning what it is to be a swimmer. As they progress, the physiological portion begins to take precedence. This post will focus on the physiological aspect of seasonal design. Addressing the psychological, tactical, and technical aspects are also important. We will address those in another post. Seasonal design. Begin with the end in mind. When we are designing a season for an athlete or training group, we look at the target meet date and target goal times for those swimmers. We also look at the starting best times for each swimmer as well. When a swimmer is younger, the percentage of improvement can be great. We can see 10% or more improvement for a variety of reasons. They could grow, get stronger, improve technique, and so on. As the swimmer progresses, the percentage of improvement gets smaller. A good rule of thumb is a 3% improvement for an experienced mid-teen swimmer. A drop from 25 seconds in a 50 free to 24.25 is an example of a good season drop for many swimmers in this category. When we are designing the season, we keep this progression rate in mind. Different strokes for different folks. When swimmers are younger, we try to have them all prepare for more distance events and the 400 individual medley. As they grow and mature, it is also important to design seasons that are in line with their best events. There is always some debate as to when to specialize, but that is again fodder for another post. I will not show the design process for each training group. Know that as we exit the first 4 weeks or so as of this post, sprint, mid, individual medley, and distance groups begin to have their own needs and will be split accordingly. Today, let's look at a mid-distance individual medley season as an example of how this all works. Seasonal design, the nuts and bolts. We will use some real-world dates. We began this season in early August and have a target date of late November. Do not worry, high schoolers. We will address your regional and state needs individually. This is just to show how a season is put together. The season described above is 16 weeks long. There are 4 phases: a pull-in phase, an accumulation phase, a realization phase, and a taper. Each phase has certain energy zones and volume needs to be effective. As the season progresses, the volume increases for much of the season and then wanes as the demands of the higher energy zones require more rest and recovery on a daily basis. The importance of energy zones. There are 5 energy zones that must be addressed throughout the season. At each phase, the demands change. This is done to ensure that the body has time to adapt to the demands and make the changes needed for peak performance at the targeted meet. No one system is more important than another. Having a balanced and timed approach to introducing and stressing the body means that the athlete will avoid injuries, be prepared for the next phase, and be ready to perform at their best at the end of the season. I have written in the past about the energy zones. I feel another video on that subject is now in order. To be succinct, having the swimmers hold the correct pace for the right duration and having the proper amount of rest between send-offs is crucial for them to be in the proper zone when training. We have used perceived exertion and heart rates to help get the athletes familiar with how each zone should feel. As we progress, their individual times will be needed for a more specific training program. Once we migrate fully to short course, we will introduce this to the national development and above training groups. A history of success. When an athlete follows this training plan, they have an extremely high rate of success in hitting their goals. I have had thousands, yes thousands of athletes hit their goal times over the years. Over time, the team's culture becomes one of expecting success, not hoping for it. This is a very powerful and effective program, and one that has been used within my own programs and many programs throughout the club, college, and international ranks with much success. I have had the pleasure of helping coaches from around the world adopt these strategies, and I'm always happy to see their successes. This strategy has been proven to work time and time again. It is my hope that our athletes and families are ready to buy in and follow the program this season and beyond. When we are all on the same page, amazing things happen. Follow the recipe. Earlier in the season, I shared much of this information with the swimmers on deck. I then used an analogy to drive the point I wanted to make home. It was about following a recipe. Let's say I have a great recipe for soup. The list of ingredients calls for, let's say, organic bone broth, freshly cut vegetables, and grass-fed local beef. Someone tastes the soup, loves it, and wants to make it themselves. Unfortunately, life is busy, and those ingredients are a tad pricey. Instead of organic bone broth, they substitute processed stock broth. Going to the market for fresh local vegetables is not convenient, but grabbing a can of cut ones off the shelf is very convenient. Speaking of convenience, the prepackaged processed meat is just a few steps away in the frozen meat department. And wait, it is on sale. The person goes home and prepares the soup. When they taste it, they are surprised that it tastes nothing like what they experienced earlier. What a terrible recipe. Well, not really. The recipe has to be followed to have the right outcome. The same is true here. We can create a great plan, but if it is not followed, your results will vary, as they say. I know that there are realities that may force someone to miss some mornings or a practice here and there. We are willing to work with you to find a way to lessen any negative effects of missing those pieces of the puzzle. Long-term success. I am all about each swimmer's long-term success and happiness in the sport. Each has their own goals and ambitions. I had a classroom session earlier this season where we went over goal setting. If you missed it or the handouts, ask me for them. I will make another video to help those who missed out on that session. Setting those goals make following the recipe a lot easier. It gives you purpose and motivation when things get hard. Going with the flow. Lastly, what do we do when things do not go as planned? We find ways around them. For example, this week at the time of this post, the pumps had some issues. While we can swim, the water is hotter than normal and can pose a health concern if I push the swimmers too hard in those conditions. We had to pivot and find a way to make the best of a hard situation. We have also been dealing with the pool set in long course. This meant more swimmers than normal per lane. While our numbers are not too great per lane, it does represent a challenge giving specific workouts to all of the various training groups mentioned above. Fortunately, it is early in the season and we can all do some things together and still have an effective session. Coach Kim is also on a pre-scheduled vacation, so we have multiple groups working together. Again, not ideal, but we are going with the flow and making it work. The long-winded point is to have a plan, work it to the best of your ability, and be ready to adapt when unseen or unfortunate circumstances arise. By keeping this as our individual and team mindset, success will be inevitable. If you made it this far, awesome. We hope you got something out of the experience. We feel it is important that you know why we do what we do. Please keep in mind that this is only a brief overview of seasonal design. We will address many of the aspects individually in future posts. And remember, a smart swimmer is a fast swimmer. We are glad to bring you these posts to help you learn and grow in the sport. All of us here at Florida Atlantic are looking forward to helping everyone meet and exceed their goals.